Hey everyone, this is Ben. Welcome back to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, where each episode I get to interview folks who are inside and outside the legal profession who are dinging the world. And today got a great guest, Michael DeLon. Michael's got a company called Paperback Expert. We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is writing a book to create authority, to be authority, to show up as in a competitive free zone.
Yeah.
Michael, I don't know if you know, I wrote my first book probably 17 years ago. Most of it was written on a long flight from Dulles Airport to Beijing for one of our adoption trips. And it literally was blank page, and it was a dark and stormy night to start.
Yes.
And I've done books now in, I think, using almost every different flavor of getting it done. So it's great to talk to you today on the podcast, because I think as used to this as you and I are, which is book writing for authority, for marketing, and for getting a message out to the world, it's still a relatively small number of lawyers and other professionals who have utilized this tool. And so if someone goes to Google around, they'll find a lot of different ways to get it done, a lot of folks. But I want to talk to you today because you're good at this. You've got a company that's completely devoted to helping build authority in a way that does not involve sitting down at a blank piece of paper and typing "it was a dark and stormy night." So welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. It's going to be a fun conversation. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'm always curious about people's backstory, and I love talking to entrepreneurs. As folks can't see this in the full podcast, but Michael has he's built out the attic part of his house. It looks like a loft. It is it's close enough to his children that if his wife goes out, they're safe. He's there, but he's also, quote, far enough away where he can work without being interfered with by people, at your front door in a regular office. So I'm a little bit jealous of that. That looks very cool. Start there. Tell me about the loft project.
Yeah, so the Loft Project was a vision God gave me about 4 years ago. I was working out of a Sunday school room in my church, which was about 10 minutes away. And I stood in my garage attic one time and I said, I'm going to sketch this out. So on a spiral bound notepad, I sketched out what I wanted, put it in the top of my toolbox and let it sit. And then about a year later, God led us to leave that church and to go to a different church. And I thought, they're probably not going to let me stay in that Sunday school room. Mm-hmm. So I pulled out my little sketch. I went to a friend of mine who's a construction guy. I said, can you help me build this? And I've always wanted to be on property out of the house. My wife says I'm a little loud when I talk. And so she's a homeschooling mom. And she's like, I really need you to get. So it worked really well. And so I had my construction friend help build it. A guy from church wired it for me. Another guy put the air conditioning system in with me. And we transformed a garage attic into a 12 by 12 office that is really, really great for what I do.
Here's what I like. It has nothing to do with our discussion today, but the life principle of sitting down, giving yourself time to think. I too have a pen and paper, a journal, a couple different journals, like just crafting out what would be perfect for me, even if you don't have a vision of when that would happen, how I can afford it, why I would even need such a thing. But you started to craft this vision. Many years ago, I crafted a vision of a training center we have here without being in this space, without knowing that we were even thinking about moving, right? And that our training center became what I had actually written down, much like yours. And so that's a great, I just recommend this practice to everyone. This practice of carving out some time to think about, gee, if I had a magic wand and I really wanted to make my work environment, my job, my business, whatever it is, perfect, what would it actually look like? And give yourself permission to do that. So tip of the day, and we haven't even started.
That's right. Yeah. And we could do a whole podcast around that topic, and maybe we'll do that later on, but yeah.
All right. So you told us a little bit of backstory, but now let's, I don't know, like, how did you get to become with this business and a book authoring expert? And tell me that journey.
Let me tell you a whole story. It takes about 3.5 minutes usually. So my wife and I have been married since 1990. Okay. First 5 years of our marriage, Ben, were like this. Jill and I just clashed because we're complete opposites. And even though she and I both grew up in church, nobody ever taught us how to be married. And so first 5 years were really hard. We then went to a marriage conference by a ministry called Family Life, part of Campus Crusade for Christ, and sat in a ballroom with about 1,000 people as they unpacked God's blueprints for marriage. I didn't know he had any. So we grabbed those blueprints. We started applying them in our marriage. Our marriage got better. I was in Christian radio at this time. This is in the 90s. I was selling Christian radio. And what I learned after 2 years is nobody wants to buy Christian radio, Ben. What they want to do is sell their products and services. So I had a choice. I could either get really good at selling or really good at marketing. So I chose marketing. I bought the books, followed the gurus, went to the conferences, learned how to do marketing for small business owners. So over the 90s, my business grew. During the time, we had 2 kids, my 2 eldest sons. And then at the end of the 90s, God led us out of Christian radio into a startup.com. Back when Amazon was just getting started. You remember when William Shatner was on the radio talking about the world's largest bookstore? That's when my buddy started an internet company to change the world. I went to them. I was selling banner ads and websites to car dealerships and hospitals that didn't know what the internet was. Well, Ben, that company was ahead of its time. That means it went bankrupt. And so 2 years later, I'm standing in my living room going, God, what am I supposed to do now? And he spoke to my heart. He says, Michael, I want you to ministry to marriages, and I want you at Family Life, that ministry that changed our marriage. So we said, okay, great. Called them, went through their interview process. They said, hey, yeah, we want you to serve with us, but you got to go raise your own financial support because we're a missionary organization. So for 2 years, I raised financial support in Indiana, moved down to Little Rock, Arkansas, which is where the ministry was headquartered. They dropped me in the radio department of the ministry. I was like, I hit Nirvana, Ben. Why would I ever leave? Oh, my goodness. So I served with that ministry, climbed the corporate ladder. 6 years later, I'm on the leadership team of the ministry, doing great things, making great impact. Then they started going through corporate reorganizations. And after the third reorganizational chart was rolled out, my name was no longer on the leadership team. So they started shuffling me around the ministry, doing different things. And that was the beginning of a 2-year prison term for me, where I was in a job I hated at a ministry I loved. So after 2 years, I talked to my wife. I prayed. I said, God, I got to get out of this place. And he's like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go help small business owners with marketing because they struggle with it. They hate it. And I love it. And he said, go. So on January 1st of 2013, Ben, I escaped from prison. And I left the ministry and started my own marketing consulting firm. I had one client. I helped him break through some barriers. He'd refer me to you. So I'd come and talk to you, Ben. I'd say, I can help you grow your business. We'd have a great conversation. Somewhere in that conversation, you'd say, now, Michael, what have you done for the last few years? Who else have you helped? I say, I've helped build marriages and families at Family Life. And you say, Michael, that's honorable. Way to go. Oh, look at the time. I've got another meeting coming up, Michael. Let's reschedule and keep this conversation going. And you'd usher me out the door. So I wasn't gaining clients, and I was living on savings. I knew I had to fix that. So I went back to my church one day, second floor. I was pacing the hallway saying, God, how do I help Ben? Because I know I can. And God laid it on my heart, Ben, to take all of my ideas, my strategies around marketing and put them in a book. And so I did. So back in 2013, I published my first book on marketing. Then I would call you. I'd mail a copy of my book to you. I'd walk into your office a week later for that meeting. And there it was. My book was on your desk, dog-eared, highlighted, underlined. You'd read my book, Ben. And in that meeting, you say, now, Michael, in your book, you said, how do you help me do that? And you'd hire me. And I started gaining clients. And I thought, this is really cool. Why don't business owners do this? Well, man, you know, as well as I do, how hard it can be to write a book. And so I went back to church. I sat down in a Sunday school room. I built a spreadsheet listing every step it took me to write my book, created a system that eliminates all of those barriers. And that was the seed that got planted that today is Paperback Expert, where we work with lawyers and experts around the country to help them create a book without writing a word. And then we teach them how to use that book in their marketing to gain clients, get referrals, and grow their revenue. There you go.
Very similar backstory. When I got out of law school and practiced for 12, 13 years with another firm, eventually left that firm to start my own practice because how hard could this be? I was a good lawyer and struggled with it until I discovered this strategy. And my very first quote book, and I put air quotes around it, and I'll explain that in a second, was the Guide to Auto Accidents in Virginia. It was about the whole process and working with a lawyer and all that stuff. And the reason I put air quotes around it was that my very first quote book was printed off on a photocopier and stapled together or jammed into a sort of a bindery type machine that we had to make it into a book, because when people would call, my team could then say, well, did you know that he wrote the book on car accidents in Virginia?
Yes.
And since then, I'm probably in the 20s or, mid 20s in total number of books, either books we've written, as I said, it was a dark and stormy night, wrote every single word, compilations, done joint projects with other authors, putting together a book with multi-authors, worked with ghostwriters, basically talked the book, although that was also had work involved in it for me anyway. And so, it is the best calling card, because
Without question.
Because what do we have today, Michael? We have people pitching you on LinkedIn or email. Hey, man, I'm the SEO expert, and I'm going to, I can sell you services and get you to the top part of Google. Versus somebody who wants to get my attention, sends me a box. Inside the box is the last box I got, probably had 3 or 4 books by this particular guru who was seeking to get my attention. I'm an avid book reader. I read 70 to 80 books a year, real books, in addition to the books I listen to on audio, but real books, not on a Kindle or anything, but in book form, right? I have a huge library at home and recycle a lot of things back into the world once I read them. And so we know that this is a great calling card, and you're exactly right. Is that the quote, the barrier for any busy, successful professional has always been, it looks like a lot of work.
Right.
I don't know where to begin. And then you have that kind of mental insecurity barrier, which just says, who would read it? Why would anybody care about my story? Am I going to make any money on the book? The money from book sales is not what we're talking about here.
Right.
And so you've developed a process to make this easy. And so I want to start by, endorsing the concept, because even though, again, if you live in the space of successful business people and look around and go to events, a lot of highly successful people have written books.
Right.
But that's a tiny slice of the whole lawyer universe. So most haven't. And even those that have watched me in my local area do this for 20 years, it's nobody else around me.
Right.
Unless they've been coached by me.
Right.
Has a book. So it is the most incredible calling card. And there's so many different ways you can use a book today. But let's just start for lawyers in particular, Michael, with some of the lawyers you worked with, what are the subject matters? What are lawyers and other professionals writing about today that is getting them in the door, as your book helped you get in the door with small biz owners?
Yeah. So the best thing, Ben, that we love to do is when we first start working with a lawyer is I want to get their story. What is your backstory? Very much like you did for me. Okay. And every attorney has one, but what I find is most of them aren't telling it. Okay. So if I can I give you one example? I mean, I've got dozens, but I had a personal injury attorney down in Florida call me, and he's the small guy. He's the David against two giant Goliaths.
If he's in Florida, he has at least 2 giant Goliaths.
Big time. And he's like, I can't compete with what they're spending. And I said, okay, no big deal. We've got all kinds of strategies. So I said, tell me, I've got a whole process to get their story. And I said, tell me your story. One of my questions is, why do you live where you live? So he moved from the Northeast down to Florida to go to college on a baseball scholarship. He was heading towards the pros as a pitcher. So he was in college, second year, he threw his arm out, had to have a surgery, rehabilitation, killed his baseball career, killed his scholarship. He pivoted, became a lawyer, became a personal injury lawyer. How do personal injury lawyers advertise, Ben? You've been hit by a big truck? Call me. I just got a big settlement. That's what everybody. And I asked him, I said, William, have you ever told that story to anybody? And he's like, no, it's not. Who cares? I said, everybody will. So we took that story and we crafted his book and we published his book. And it's When Life Throws You a Curveball: What to Do When You've Been in a Serious Accident, by William Franke, baseball player turned attorney. Now, when he goes on the morning show or on radio, he's talking to his audience saying, hey, has life thrown you a curveball? Did you get hit by a truck? Did you get bit by a bike or a dog? What is it? if life threw you a curveball, I can resonate because life threw me a curveball. And I want to walk with you through the process and get you the settlement you deserve. It's a totally different message, Ben. It reaches the heart of his audience and it connects him as a real person, first of all. Then the rest of the book talks about, the process and everything there. It's not that. People buy who you are more than what you do. And so we're big proponents of finding that story that's going to separate you. Goliath can't compete with David anymore, right? Because he's got a powerful, compelling story.
There's a number of great points wrapped up in that. The first is lawyers will say, well, I don't have a very exciting story. No one would be interested. And that's just not true.
Absolutely.
Your story is the one thing that nobody can steal from you. It's the one thing that it is 100% unique to you, no matter what that story is. And the thing is, the second principle is, of course, the human brain, because we're subjected to so many marketing messages, the human brain is wired to reject and ignore marketing, especially if you haven't been in a car accident. Like, you don't even see those billboards, right? But storytelling is what we've done ever since we had language.
That's right.
That is how we conveyed history pre-writing and conveyed culture, conveyed everything was through stories. And third principle is, because that book, and you showed the cover of it, it's got a baseball on it. Yeah. It's got a cool headline, it's very hard psychologically for people to throw books away.
Absolutely.
We may donate them to the library or to the school book fair. Fine. Yeah. I throw marketing messages away that come, you get like the insurance companies, you can tell when they're doing a new marketing. I'll get like 5 letters from State Farm agents.
Yes.
Because I'm on the list and all the letters are the same. So obviously nothing differentiates. And they go straight in the trash can, right? Yeah. But people psychologically, and for good reason, have a very hard time in throwing away a book. And I'll show you, I don't know if you've seen this. Yeah. So my latest book to the profession is Play Left Fullback.
Okay.
And so when I wrote this, I had to wrestle with the publisher because they're like, no, this is a book about coaching lawyers. And that title is going to confuse people. I go, no, that's my story. My dad told me when I was trying out for my first travel soccer team, tell the coach you play left fullback. I said, I'd never played left fullback. I'm not left-footed and I want to score goals. Why would I want to play left fullback? He says, because the object is to get on the team and nobody else is going to want to play left fullback. So you're going to show up differently and just get on the team. We'll figure out the rest later.
Love it.
And it's such I use this book, which again, it's about restoring America's trust in lawyers. I use it for all sorts of lead gen purposes because I'll tell people, I'll hand it to them. They're not a lawyer. They're not looking to be coached by me. Like, this is really a philosophy book. It's a life philosophy book. I think you'll like it. And it has my story and it's got pictures of childhood and all that sort of stuff in it. But a book will get you through the clutter, particularly if you're in a very high competitive area for personal injury cases, like all of Florida is.
Yes.
And because even the big Goliaths, like they're thinking, how can I spend my next $1 million this month on TV,
right,
or radio or SEO? And for some reason, because if they actually understood this, they'd be dangerous.
Yes.
Excuse me. But they're just not latched on. And I've lectured about this a lot. And the big firms with a lot of money want to by and large stick with what they believe is tried and true.
Yeah.
And your client that you described and many of my coaching clients are like, nah, we're going to do grassroots marketing really well. Like, I don't need 1 billion cases. I just need the right cases for me. So congrats you for figuring that out. Now, how did you, I guess you wrote down your own steps for getting published and then you thought, well, this is a good idea. This can help people, right? Again, another life principle. You're selling something, you're selling services to help small biz grow, but you're thinking like, I really want to help this person because if they grow, I grow, right?
Oh,
that's
totally.
Another good win-win life principle there.
Well, it is. And as you say, I figured it all out in my book, how to do it. I teach that. We do it for them. But in the marketing aspect, I take a totally different approach to marketing because I'm very relational. And so, yes, I want you to give your book away to everybody. Everybody in the city needs to have your book. You need to become a resource. But I also teach our clients how to take, all right, you've got a book, it's got 12 or 15 chapters. How about doing a short, I call them micro trainings, right? Little webinars on every chapter, turn them into podcasts, turn them into blog. How about, I do a lot of Loom, Loom videos in email. And I teach that to my clients because it's more personal. And I teach them how to, mail your book out in I call it a welcome and wow kit versus shock and all, but it's how do you mail that out so you show up and it's an experience? All of these little marketing strategies that set you apart. And Ben, one of my best strategies, I got 2 strategies that are off the chart. A gifting strategy with the company I use where I actually send food items to prospects, clients, and referrals that is just off the charts. And believe it or not, I have a 4-step thank you system because people don't say thank you like they used to. And so I teach clients how to say thank you to prospects. It blows people away.
Well, let's talk about that, because I suspect one of the places you're going with this is that, again, because people value books, and most thank yous are, hey, let's call up the big chocolate company and send 400 pounds of sugar and diabetic precursors. And if part of this thank you sequence is book, yours and others probably, but talk to me about that, because this is big for lawyers. Lawyers, they know that referrals are important. They claim they get enough of them, and yet they don't usually have a process and a procedure, a good one, for thanking people in a way that stands out.
I love it. Hang on. I got to grab a couple things. we weren't going to go here, but this is good. So number one,
the thing about this podcast is we can go anywhere.
I love this, Ben. So here's what's going to happen after this podcast, Ben. I'm going to make sure I get your mailing address, number one, because I'm going to mail you a handwritten thank you. Okay. It's going to be personal. It's going to have a stamp on it. You're going to get it in the mail. Right. In addition to that, inside of that, you're going to get a copy of my print newsletter. Oh, look at that.
All of that. Yes.
Ben's got one. Yeah. You're going to get a copy of my print newsletter, which has what? My family on the front of it, because it's all emotional. And then a few days later, you're going to get a box in the mail that looks like this. It's a big brown box. Got my logo on. You're going to open it up, and it's going to have a little note on it that says something like, "Hey, Ben, we're nuts about working with you. One of my favorite childhood memories was my dad bringing cashews home from the mall. I hope you can make a memorable moment with somebody you love, Michael." And then you're going to dig through it, and there's a big bag of cashews, right? But it's systematically timed, right? And then after that, you're probably going to get a box with my book in it and some other great material about writing a book and things. And so you're getting items in the mail. I don't know if you ever go to the mailbox, man, but I went to my mailbox the other day with 3 pieces of mail in it.
Exactly. It's become a competition-free zone.
Yeah, it's a great way to market when you do it properly. And so I use direct mail a lot to win the hearts of people through handwritten thank yous, personalized food gifts, and print newsletters that I use over and over again. Anybody can do this, but the other thing you're going to get right after this is a Loom thank you from me, a very short video-based email this personal to you to say, "Ben, thank you so much. I really enjoyed being on your podcast. Thanks for the time to share with your audience. I hope it's valuable."
Yeah. And so can you imagine now if lawyers just had that all systematized, like they put some deep thought into what the sequence would be. And of course, I guess different levels of thank you, right? So if you've got a firm that's a top referrer, send you a lot. Of course, they like the referral checks in the PI world. Of course, they like that. But anybody can do that, right? And so a multi-step, multi-sequence thank you. The thing that we do to add on to this, which is a cool idea, is at least once a year for our top referral sources, we're sending a curated box, and the cool stuff in it has your logo on it.
Oh, that is very good.
So it's party stuff for the office, like cutting boards, wine, cheese, your logo on it.
Oh, I like that. That takes it to the next level because, I'm going to make a note of that. Is that okay?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your process. Lawyer listens to this. realizes that, writing a book, okay, Michael and Ben are saying it's not the hardest thing in the world. Sounds like a good idea. I'm sure you can send them samples of some of the work you've done.
Absolutely.
But take us through what that looks like, because I know you say your website, you're total less than maybe 24 hours or so of a lawyer's time involved in the whole deal. And that's music to lawyers' ears, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And we built our business for busy professionals like lawyers, right? First thing we're going to do is clarify your message. Make sure you've got a compelling message, book title, and all of that. That's through conversation. That's number one. It's the most important thing we're going to do with you. Once we have that, we're going to bring one of our writers to the table. We've got about 12 writers. We're going to assign a writer to you, and they're going to work with you through Zoom calls about an hour a week to build the outline for your book, bullet points, stories, all of that. And then once the outline's created, they're going to take you through our speak to write process. So they're going to guide you, Ben, through the outline, asking you questions. Okay, Ben, we're talking about chapter 2, and chapter 2 is what to do as soon as you're in that accident. And we're going to shut up, and you're just going to talk because you, Ben, have everything in your mind that's required to create this book. We're going to extract that from you, all on a recorded call. Once you've recorded your entire book, our writer then transcribes that and uses your words as the foundational material from which they, the writer, are going to craft and massage your words into your book. We send a couple chapters to you for review to make sure we've captured your words, your heart, your message. And as soon as you approve that, we'll write the rest of the manuscript. You get to review it, get feedback with your writer. Then we go to editing, proofreading, design. We could create a stunning cover for you. Once you approve all that, we publish you to Amazon, Kindle, electronic PDF for your website download, and then paperback. So you can get your book out in the hands of lots of people. Then we run a promotion to make you an Amazon best-selling author, guaranteed. Then we give you our credibility marketing systems, because having a book is great.
This is important. So
having
folks,
a book is great.
Listen to this, folks, because so many in your space, they get this first part and they understand it, and they don't know crap about marketing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you have a book, do you know how many books are on Amazon? I lost count.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that you have the book. It matters what you do with it. Do you know how to make money with your book? And so we bundle marketing with our publishing program. So we have a credibility marketing system that we work with every one of our clients and say, all right, Ben, what are you doing in marketing? What are you trying to make happen? And now I've got about 20 different systems. And based on what you're trying to do,
Sure.
I give you 7 to 9 of these systems to implement. And we've been doing this 11 years. We've done it for a lot of people. We back up what we do with a 2-year, 200% ROI guarantee, because I know it works. And so I will work with you to make sure that you gain clients, get referrals, grow your revenue using your credibility in your book. And what you said earlier was really good, that we have books, people don't throw them away. A book has shelf life, right? I wrote my first book, man, in 2013. I still use it today to gain clients, get referrals, and grow it. Once you write this, you don't have to be like Ben and write 30 or 40 books. You could write one and make it
with one. I started with one. Remember,
you started with one.
Yeah.
But it becomes an asset that you clarify your message, you simplify your marketing, because now all of your outreach, everything, hey, get a free copy of my book, to get them on your list so that you can now market to them through email and webinars and all kinds of other things. Mail a copy to them, mail it out to your centers of influence, your referral part. So many ways you can use this thing, but you clarify your message, you simplify your marketing, then you multiply your results. That's kind of our system.
So a couple of things there. One, I've actually gotten clients before. So one of the things we did in the past was we went to the public library system. We said, we have these books. What would it take? And they have a system. We got our system. We got our books into the public library. And then an older couple called me one day, and they were literally across the street from my old office, and they were in the library. They were researching about their car accident. They came across my book and hired us. So, it's unlimited potential. Another one of my clients years ago, so they were in the family law space. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they did was they took their book to all of the therapists and family law and family counselors, so the non-lawyer referral sources. And they said, look, you don't have to be comfortable saying, hey, hire Ben to be your lawyer. Right. But what they taught the therapists to say was, here's a book from a person that I trust, and the book may be helpful to you.
Yep.
And of course, it was win-win because the therapist had one more tool they could give their client. And the lawyer obviously was getting cases because therapists were getting out the lawyer's book. And even though other lawyers had to have seen this strategy being used, they had to, right? Because they're in therapists' offices too, interviewing them for cases. Like nobody ever copied it, again, because they think that the barrier is way too high.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did those attorneys do? They put themselves in, as Dan Kennedy was saying, in a category of one. And marketing in a vacuum is the best way to market. And once what we find, Ben, is with our clients, once they create their book, they now don't have to struggle with, well, what am I going to post? What am I going to say? It's all there. You just keep regurgitating that content because it can be fresh and repurposed 1,000 different ways. And it's always coming back to you and your story, which separates you.
Yeah, and the thing we found too, so I was talking to a lawyer earlier today or yesterday, and he's written his sort of autobiography, right? His story, and but he had some other people read it. He's not ready to be published. I'm like, dude, no, it's ready to be published. It's part one. Okay. Yes. Like, take your book, and even if you don't think it's perfect, because we are not writing West on auto accident cases. We're not writing a treatise. We are getting past the brains barrier and getting into people's homes and stuff like that. And what happens, Michael, is people will say, well, okay, you talked about this, but you didn't talk about this, or have questions here. Great. Volume 2, right?
Yeah.
So some of my auto accident books are probably on volume 6 or 7 or edition, 8 or 9, but just because we've revised them over the years as we changed our own systems, as in some cases the law changes, as our avatar client changed, who we were trying to attract, all of that. And then, the thing, so how did I go from one book to many is A, we have different verticals, but B, there were people that were coming into, so if you think just the auto accident industry, right, there's the person who gets an accident, getting calls from the adjuster, doesn't know what to do. Okay, we can answer that in a book. There's the person who says, okay, I do need to hire a lawyer. I have no idea. I've never had to shop for a lawyer. So we wrote a book for that, like The Truth About Lawyer Advertising. We even wrote a book way in the other end, which is how to fire your lawyer, because we knew some people had that question. Actually, the advice in that book was it's usually not a good idea. Like, try to work with the lawyer that you have because it can get expensive. But that's how you start thinking about expanding your repertoire. Is there's people on the moving parade of interest, Ogilvy, right, that are coming into needing a lawyer, but there are different spaces on different places on their journey. Mm-hmm. And so that's how you go from one book to over 20 books in part. Yeah. The other thing that we've done, my friend Brian Beckham down in Houston has done a great job of this, because Brian writes a lot about what do you need to be successful in America? And he writes all these principled arguments, principled papers, and I do too. So then we publish books on success. Has nothing to do. Yep. I published a book a couple of years ago, and all it was extracts from my own personal journal. Yes. It's like things that I wrote that or that I read somebody else's, attributed them properly in the book. Yep. Things that inspired me, and so I wrote the Live Life Big Journal, which was really the hardest part. Was like reducing the number of things I had to work with into one. That became volume 1. I haven't gotten to volume 2 yet, but I have enough stuff. I could easily do volume 2. Yeah. And again, that book's probably got, some of the pages have 5 words on it. Some pages might have 50 words on it. It's not really a chapter book, but it's a book, and it's another physical piece. We put it in gyms, salons. We just hand it out as gifts for folks who are having a bad day. And I recently heard there was a guy who got it as a gift from somebody else. And he's like, it changed my life. Like, okay, that's pretty cool, right? So again, our point though is that we're making is that we're not writing Shakespeare, we're not writing a journal article, we're not even writing a law review article. We're telling our story and our processes and showing how we can help someone move their life forward through this book, and showing up in a way that's different.
Yeah. And the other thing, Ben, I got to put this out there. I mean, I go to a lot of attorney websites and things. The primary call to action that I see on most websites.
Oh yeah.
Book a consultation with me now.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. Give me another opportunity. Get a free copy of my book. Watch my video. It just baffles me, Ben, why they don't give me an easier next step than talking with you, because I am not ready yet.
The reason is that we forget how scary it is to deal with us. Like it's the person's first experience with a lawyer in many cases, and all they've ever heard is that, we're mean
Yep.
and we're not, we're expensive and all of that stuff. And so you're exactly right. Giving people alternative ways to respond and alternative ways to get into your system or to raise their hand and say, yeah, look, I'm somebody who's injured or thinking about getting divorced, or, my family member got arrested. And I would say this too, even like those parts of the law that have to go fast, like someone's in the jail, right? My friends who have written books in the criminal law space, they still do it.
Yeah.
And they may distribute more of them by download, by electronic download, than they do by actual physical book. But the fact that you're in a fast moving practice that requires fast response time shouldn't stop you from becoming the authority on the subject in your area.
Absolutely. Because you could take your book, you could condense the chapter, you could text it out to people, right? I mean, there's so many ways, but it's how they're thinking about you. Because I'm looking at 6 different attorneys. This person wrote the book on it. Okay, they're automatically going to the top. I'm going to read their stuff first, and guess what? If in your book you said, here are the 5 questions you need to ask every attorney before you hire them, well, now you're just disqualifying everybody else, and it just puts you in a different position. It allows people to bond with you because, y'all are scary. I want to get to know you. There are just a few ways to get to know somebody. Book, great videos, good podcast. That's how we get to know you.
Yeah, and the chapters of your book can be split up now. That's a multi-sequence text or email
Absolutely
thing. And it look, and I would say like the hardest one to write is the first one, because you don't realize that the process isn't impossible. And today, I mean, companies like you're making this so much easier than it was when I first started. Like, I had to go find someone. I had to teach them why I was doing this, because the self-publishing world was a lot smaller and not as business promotional knowledgeable as it is today. So I had to do it, teach it, fight them, right? About covers and titles and all of that stuff. And now it's great to have folks like you who've been influenced by people like Kennedy, and you understand direct response marketing, obviously. And so you can add a tool to a person's overall, to a law firm's overall arsenal of marketing tools in a smart way. And you'll listen to what they already have in place. You'll ask them questions like, what are you really trying to get? Who's your avatar? Like what fish are we trying to catch with this book?
Absolutely. And especially if you're elder law attorneys, right? You look at them, they need books because their clientele grew up with newspapers and magazines and books. They love the print aspect of it. And so you've got to look at your avatar and say, okay, how do I work my marketing, my message into something that they're comfortable with, that makes them feel better about me? Because every decision we make, as you know, is an emotional decision first. Then we back it up with logic. I want to own the heart.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the other thing again, is books just don't get thrown away. So even if you're sitting in your doctor's office, right? Your doctor has books and magazines. Many of them still do, even after COVID. All right, great. So I leave like 5 copies. My wife says, "Did you know that at Dr. Jones's office, like they have your books on the shelf there?" I go, "Well, yeah, because I put them there when I was there waiting for my appointment."
Absolutely.
And they go on, like nobody's gonna go, well, this is an unauthorized book, it needs to leave, because no one's actually watching the books.
That's right. Yeah. I always say it's sacrilegious in our culture to throw a book away. And my son just moved from California to Tennessee. He moved about 300 physical books with him that I'm sure he just doesn't read. But what do you do with them? You move them from house to house and office. You become a staple, a household name. That's what you want to do in your marketing.
Somebody calls you, reaches out today, have a conversation with you to start the process. What's the turnaround time? And then in your processes, are they buying the actual physical books from you, or are they going off to some other third-party publisher? How does that all work?
Yeah, great question. Total time from us from today till when your book is ready to publish on Amazon is about 7 to 9 months. And then we run your Amazon best-selling promotion, so that's about another month. So 7 to 9 months, you're on Amazon, your life has changed. During that process, we're obviously teaching you other marketing systems. What was the second question? Books.
Printing. Yeah.
No, we take care of everything. So they're coming to us for books. They're $5 each on demand for the author. And then you can order from 25 to as many as you want. because now it's an on-demand system. So based on your marketing, what you're doing, it makes it really simple. You control the IP, you keep all the royalties. I don't want anything to do with that. We're setting you up to be the authority in the eyes of your audience.
That's the other thing that has really changed over the years is the on-demand print world. I don't have to order 1,000 and pile them up in my garage.
Yeah.
Hopefully that I'll find a need for them. Tell me a little bit about, if you can, like the Amazon best-selling process. We see books pitched on Amazon as Amazon bestsellers and, other list bestsellers. What can you share about that process?
Yeah. So we have a team that does everything. We look at the categories that your book should be in. So I'm not going to put a lawyer in gardening just to make you a bestseller. We don't do that. But we're going to go compete. We're going to look at other books. And then we have a list of about 10,000 people that we email out to. We do social media. We do press releases all across the country. And we just know how Amazon ranks books, right? It is a formula. We just happen to know the formula. And that's why we guarantee to make you an Amazon bestselling author. You're involved in everything. And if you've got a list, we're going to encourage you to send an email out to your list as well. But we've got an entire engine and a process. We've done it consistently for years. And you do it really for the credibility of how it works in the person's mind when they say, well, I'm an Amazon best-selling author of Virginia car accidents. It just changes how they think of you.
Exactly. And, again, to lawyers who read a lot of books, who buy a lot of stuff on Amazon, this is still special to most people to see that their lawyer, doctor, CPA, financial advisor, whatever, has written a book, because to most people, this is still like it's a mountain too high to them, because they're not having conversations like this.
They're not. And that's one of the things, and I'm glad you mentioned that, is we are all marketers. Your audience, we're marketers. We've forgotten more about marketing than the masses will ever know. So you're right. Outside of our world, this is all like, wow, you're an author. Wait until you get your book and you hand it to somebody. Look at the reaction on their face, especially when they see that you signed it to them. Oh, it blows them away. That's the beauty of it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that point up. We know too much about marketing. We discount it. It's like, no.
This is the thing. So oftentimes, yes, we're playing in a rarefied air. I mean, I was having a conversation before we had this call about ChatGPT and AI, and I'm talking to very sophisticated lawyers who are already figuring out how to leverage this. And actually, most lawyers in most lawyer rooms around America, like some 50% of them still don't understand what ChatGPT is. Right. And then the next 40% go, oh my God, this sounds really scary. And there's like the 0.5% of us that are talking about, just on a call I had before I got on with you, like, oh my gosh, these ideas are unbelievable for how we're going to leverage the technology and move things along in a very ethical, very professional way. But let's use the engine, just like let's use this speak to author, speak to book process with someone who's an expert, who can get me, quote, famous. And again, we don't have to be famous to the world. We have to be famous to our market and to our avatar. My son and I are famous in our gym, famous in the church, famous for me in the local refereeing community, the local sports community. And honestly, most lawyers, if you were famous like in 2 or 3 different little local places, you'd have more cases than you need, right?
Absolutely.
We always are trying to grab like the whole state. I need 5 more billboards rather than becoming a celebrity, which is what you're helping people do. Michael, this has been wonderful. So where do people go to? You probably have some free reports. I know you've got a website, but let's share that with folks so they know if they'd like how to reach out to you, see what you have, and get started with you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, the easiest thing is just go to our website. It's paperbackexpert.com. And on there, you can find, free information, process, pricing, everything that you need about Michael and Paperback Expert is right there, paperbackexpert.com.
Yeah, great. I just want people to know, I like interviewing interesting people. I don't get anything out of this except the intellectual part of discussing marketing with really smart people. However, if you're listening to this and you like the podcast and you want to give me a like on the podcast and leave a comment, that's awesome too, because we want to my whole reason for being at this point in my career, Michael, is to help lawyers understand that the default in the industry should not be sadness and depression. There's a whole bunch of us having fun, making money, growing great families, growing great firms. And we do it largely by leveraging the brains of other people like
Absolutely.
you, who've got something that will help us move faster and serve clients better. So thanks for being in on this conversation. Any last thoughts about anything I missed, didn't ask about book
Man,
authoring?
you just covered the whole gambit. Here's what I normally end people with is just always remember, tell your story. And you talked about it earlier. People are going to buy you more than what you do. So be yourself in all of your marketing, and that's going to help you grow your business more than anything because they're going to like you.
I think, yes, absolutely. Have confidence in who you are. You were built to excel. You were built with a unique combination of gifts, talents, and interests. There's a reason why you are here with that set. So let's use it. And then again, if anyone has a conversation you'd ever like to have with me, like we can set that up, and I can help push you along this path to self-confidence and then ultimately to dominance in your market. All right, man. Good to talk to you, Michael.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.